Good evening, Carl, and welcome to the 39th and last of the stories, this time from the Red Fairy book. When I say it's going to be the last of the stories, I mean it's the last of these particular fairy stories. For the moment, I'm next week, what am I saying next week for? Tomorrow I'm hoping to kick off with the classic Jungle Book, not the Disney version, but the good one that we started reading back in Singapore. Anyway, I am now, so let's get cracking. I want us to just come back, hence the suit and tie. The Marvellous Magician. Once upon a time there was a marvellous magician. One day he was wandering through a wood all by himself, thinking now of one thing and now of another, till there was nothing else left to think of about. Then he said to himself, "Time hangs very heavily on my hands when I'm all alone in the wood. I must try and find a pleasant companion." So he took his fiddle out and fiddled till he woke the echoes around. After a time a wolf came through the thicket and trotted up to the musician. "Oh, a wolf is it?" he said. "I have not the smallest wish for his society." But the wolf approached him and said, "Oh, my dear musician, how beautifully you play. I wish you'd teach me how it's done." "Easily learned," answered the fiddler. "You must only do exactly as I tell you." "Of course I will," replied the wolf. "I shall promise you I shall be a most apt pupil." So they joined company and went their way together, and came after time to an old oak tree which was hollow and had a crack in the middle of the trunk. "Now," said the musician, "if you want to learn how to fiddle, here's your chance. Lay your front paws in this crack." The wolf did as he was told, and the musician quickly seized a stone and wedged both between his forepaws, so that firmly in the crack he was held there, a fast prisoner. "Wait here till I return," said the fiddler, and he went on his way. After time he said to himself again, "Time hangs very heavily on my hands, and when I'm all alone in the woods, I must try and find a companion." So he drew out his fiddle and fiddled away lustily. Presently a fox slunk through the trees. "Ah, what have we here?" said the musician. "A fox? Well, I haven't the smallest desire for his company." The fox came straight up to him and said, "My dear friend, how beautifully you play the fiddle. I'd like to learn how you do it." "Nothing easy," said the musician, "if you promise to do exactly as I tell you." "Certainly," answered the fox. "You have only to say the word." "Well then, follow me." When they had gone a bit out of the way, they came to a path with high trees on each side. Here the musician halted, bent a stout hazel bough down to the ground on one side of the path, and put his foot on the end of it to keep it down. Then he bent a branch down from the other side and said, "Give me your left paw, my little fox, if you really wish to learn how it's done." The fox did as he was told, and the musician tied his front paw to one of the branches. "Now, my friend, give me your right paw." This he bound to the other branch, and having carefully seen that the knots were all still secure, stepped off the end of the branches till they sprang back, leaving the poor fox suspended in midair. "Just you wait here till I return," said the musician, went on his way again. Once more he said to himself, "Time hangs heavily on my hands when I'm all alone in the woods. I must try and find some other companion." So he took out his fiddle and played merrily as before. This time a little hare came running up at the sound. "Oh, here comes a hare," said the musician. "I've not the smallest desire for his company." "How beautifully you play, my dear Mr. Fiddler," said the little hare. "I wish I could learn how you do it." "Easily learnt," answered the musician. "Just do exactly as I tell you." "This I will," said the hare. "You will find me a most attentive pupil." Then they went on a bit together and came to a thin part of the wood where they found an aspen tree growing. The musician bound a long cord round the little hare's neck, and the other end he fastened to the tree. "Now, my merry little friend," said the musician, "run 20 times round the tree." The little hare obeyed, and when it run 20 times round the tree, the cord had twisted itself 20 runs round the trunk, so the poor beast was held as fast prisoner. It might bite and tear as much as it liked, it could not free itself, and the cord only cut its tender neck. "Wait there till I return," said the musician, and went on his way. In the meantime the wood had pulled and bitten and scratched at the stone until he last succeeded in getting his paws out. Full of anger he hurried after the musician, determined when he met him to tear him to pieces. When Fox saw him running by he called as loudly as he could, "Brother Wolf, come to my rescue. The musician has deceived me too." And the wolf pulled the branches down, bit the cord in two, and set the fox free. So they went on their way together, both vowing vengeance on the musician. They found the poor imprisoned little hare, and having set him free also, all set out to look for their enemy. During this time the musician had once more played his fiddle, and having been more fortunate in the result, the sound was pierced to the ears of a poor woodsman, who instantly left his work, and with his hatchet on his arm came to listen to the music. "At last I've got a proper sort of companion," said the musician, "for it was a human being I wanted all along, not a wild animal." And he went playing so enchanting that the poor man stood there as if bewitched, and his heart leaped for joy as he listened. And as he stood there thus, the wolf and fox and little hare came up, and the woodsman saw at once they meant mischief. lifted his glittering axe and placed himself in front of the musician as if much to say, "If you touch a hair on his head, beware, for you have to answer to me for it." And then the beasts were frightened, and all three ran back into the wood. The musician played the woodsman one of his best tunes by way of thanks, and then continued on his way. Strange one to end our current round of fairy stories, Carl. Don't worry, there'll be more fairy stories in the future. But I hope tomorrow that you will join me again when we get started on the Jungle Book, the tale of Mowgli and Baloo and Kaa, and it's very different from the version that you've seen. Until tomorrow, my shots, I love you to pieces.